Benny Blanco was staring at the decorations scattered across his living room with pure satisfaction, knowing that everything was falling into place for what would become the most perfectly planned 37th birthday celebration of his life. But he had no idea that in just 2 hours, those same decorations would become the backdrop for the most terrifying and ultimately transformative night he and Selena Gomez had ever experienced together. It was March 8th, 2024, and Benny's Hollywood Hills home had been transformed into an intimate celebration space that felt more like a cozy recording studio than a traditional party venue. Selena had spent weeks secretly coordinating every detail, working with his closest friends and collaborators to create something that honored not just his birthday, but his passion for music and the creative process that had brought them together in the first place. The main living room had been converted into a mini recording setup, complete with a vintage Neumann microphone, a small mixing board, and comfortable seating arranged in a circle that encouraged collaboration and conversation. String lights created a warm, golden atmosphere, while carefully curated plants and candles added an organic, lived-in feeling that made everyone feel immediately at home. This wasn't about impressing people with expensive decorations. This was about creating a space where Benny could be surrounded by the music and the people he loved most. Selena had spent the morning in the kitchen, personally preparing all of Benny's favorite foods with the help of his longtime friend and fellow producer, Kashmir Cat, who had flown in from Norway specifically for the celebration. They'd made Korean barbecue tacos, which had become Benny's obsession after a late-night studio session in Koreatown. There were also homemade empanadas, a nod to Selena's Mexican heritage and something that had become a tradition in their relationship. The centerpiece was a custom birthday cake designed to look like a vintage analog synthesizer, complete with edible knobs and sliders that actually functioned. "I still can't believe you managed to keep this a secret for 3 weeks," Benny said, wrapping his arms around Selena from behind as she put the finishing touches on the food presentation. "You know how bad you are at keeping surprises." Selena laughed, leaning back against his chest. "Hey, I can keep secrets when they matter. Besides, Kashmir helped me stay focused every time I wanted to spill everything." The guest list was deliberately small and meaningful. Josh Goodwin, Benny's longtime engineer and creative partner. Halsey, who had become not just a collaborator, but a genuine friend to both of them. A few other producers and writers who had been part of Benny's journey over the years. People who understood the craft and the creativity that drove him every single day. But this wasn't just about celebrating another year of Benny's life. Over the past few months, their relationship had deepened in ways that surprised both of them. They'd moved beyond the initial excitement of new love and into something more substantial, more real. Selena had been dealing with the pressures of her expanding business empire, including Rare Beauty's continued growth and her acting commitments, while Benny had been working on what he considered his most personal album yet. They'd learned to support each other through the stress and the success, creating a partnership that felt both romantic and creative. Many of their evenings were spent in Benny's home studio, where Selena would work on melodies while Benny experimented with production ideas, both of them feeding off each other's creative energy in ways that felt natural and inspiring. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of all of that growth, both personal and professional. Selena had even arranged for a surprise musical collaboration, where each guest would contribute to a spontaneous song that they'd record live during the party, creating a birthday present that could never be replicated or purchased. As guests began arriving around 7 p.m., the energy in the house was exactly what Selena had hoped for. Casual, creative, and filled with genuine affection for Benny. Halsey brought her guitar and immediately started jamming with Josh on some chord progressions. Kashmir Cat set up his laptop and began layering in some atmospheric sounds that transformed the entire living room into an immersive sonic environment. Benny was in his element, moving between conversations about new music, shared memories, and plans for future collaborations. This was the version of him that Selena loved most, when he was completely relaxed and surrounded by people who understood his passion for music and creativity. "This is incredible, Sel," he whispered to her during a quiet moment between conversations. "This feels like home in a way I've never experienced before." For the first 2 hours, everything was absolutely perfect. The food was a hit, the music was flowing naturally, and Benny's joy was infectious. They'd already started working on a collaborative song, with each person adding their own element to a track that was becoming something beautiful and unexpected. But here's where everything started to change in ways that no one could have anticipated. As the evening progressed, Selena began feeling what she initially dismissed as simple fatigue from all the party planning and preparation. She'd been up late for several nights, coordinating details and making sure everything would be perfect for Benny's birthday. "You okay, babe?" Benny asked during a break in the recording session. "You look a little tired. Just exhausted from keeping your surprise a secret," Selena replied with a smile, but she was already noticing that the fatigue felt different than usual. Deeper, more persistent, accompanied by a subtle aching in her joints that she'd learned to recognize as a warning sign. Selena had been managing lupus for several years, and while she'd become skilled at recognizing her body's signals and managing flare-ups, the unpredictable nature of the condition meant that symptoms could appear suddenly, even during the most joyful moments of her life. The stress of party planning, combined with her busy work schedule and the emotional intensity of being deeply in love, had created the perfect conditions for her immune system to react. But this was Benny's birthday, and Selena was determined not to let anything interfere with the celebration she'd worked so hard to create. She'd dealt with lupus symptoms before, and she told herself she could manage whatever was happening until the party was over. As they resumed the recording session, Selena noticed that her hands were starting to feel stiff and painful, making it difficult to play the piano parts she'd been contributing to their collaborative song. The joint pain was spreading to her wrists and shoulders, but she tried to adjust her playing style to compensate without drawing attention to her discomfort. "Let me try a different approach to this melody," she said, hoping that changing her hand position might help with the pain. But Benny, who had become attuned to her moods and expressions over their months together, noticed that something was off. The way she was holding her hands, the slight tension in her shoulders, the fact that she seemed to be concentrating harder than usual on musical parts that normally came naturally to her. "Sel, you sure you're feeling okay?" he asked quietly, moving closer to her at the piano. "I'm fine, baby. Just want to get this song right for your birthday," she replied. But even as she said it, she was becoming aware that the fatigue was intensifying and her joints were becoming more painful. The next 20 minutes passed in a haze of Selena trying to participate normally in the celebration, while her body began sending increasingly urgent signals that something was wrong. The joint pain spread to her knees and ankles, making it difficult to stand comfortably. A subtle rash began appearing on her cheeks and across the bridge of her nose, the distinctive butterfly pattern that had become all too familiar over the years. But the moment that changed everything happened when Selena stood up from the piano bench to get a glass of water and immediately felt dizzy enough that she had to grab onto the piano for support. The room seemed to tilt slightly, and she realized that her heart was beating faster than normal. "Whoa," she said quietly, hoping to steady herself without causing alarm. But Benny was right there, his hands immediately reaching out to support her. "Selena, what's happening?" "Just got up too fast," she said, but they both knew that wasn't the whole truth. The dizziness wasn't subsiding, and she was beginning to feel short of breath in a way that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Halsey, who had been tuning her guitar across the room, looked up and immediately noticed the change in Selena's complexion. "Sel, you look really pale. Maybe you should sit down." "I'm okay," Selena insisted, but as she tried to take a step toward the couch, her legs felt weak and unsteady. The room was starting to feel too warm, and she could feel sweat beginning to form on her forehead despite the comfortable temperature. Benny's protective instincts kicked in immediately. "Everyone, can we take a break for a few minutes?" he announced to the room, his voice calm but firm. "Sel needs to rest." As the other guests moved to the kitchen area to give them some privacy, Benny guided Selena to the couch and knelt down in front of her, his hands gently holding hers while he studied her face with growing concern. "Baby, talk to me. What are you feeling right now?" Selena looked into his eyes and saw the worry there, and she realized that she couldn't continue pretending that everything was fine. The joint pain had intensified to the point where simply sitting was uncomfortable, and the butterfly rash on her face was becoming more pronounced. "My joints are really hurting," she admitted quietly, "and I'm having trouble catching my breath. I think I might be having a lupus flare." The words hung in the air between them, and Selena immediately saw the fear flash across Benny's face before he composed himself. They'd talked about her lupus extensively over the months they'd been together, and he'd educated himself about the condition, but this was the first time he was witnessing a significant flare-up in person. "Okay," he said, his voice steady despite his obvious concern. "What do we need to do? Should I call your doctor? Do you need to go to the hospital?" But even as they were talking, Selena's symptoms were continuing to escalate. The shortness of breath was becoming more pronounced, and she was starting to feel a crushing fatigue that made it difficult to concentrate on the conversation. The butterfly rash was spreading, and her joints were becoming so painful that even slight movements were excruciating. "Benny, I think I need to lie down," she said, but as she tried to shift her position on the couch, a wave of nausea hit her so strongly that she had to close her eyes and focus on not throwing up. That's when Benny knew they were beyond the point of hoping this would pass on its own. "I'm calling 911, he said, already reaching for his phone. "No, Benny, it's your birthday party," Selena protested weakly. "I don't want to ruin everything." But Benny was already dialing, his free hand gently stroking her hair. "Selena, you could never ruin anything. Your health is the only thing that matters right now." The next few minutes passed in a blur of activity. Benny explained the situation to the 911 dispatcher while simultaneously trying to comfort Selena, who was now experiencing chills despite the warm evening. Josh and Halsey quietly managed the other guests, explaining that Selena wasn't feeling well and that the party would need to end early. "Should we cancel everything?" Cashmere Cat asked Benny quietly. "No, absolutely not," Selena said from the couch, her voice weak but determined. "Everyone should stay and celebrate. This isn't about me." But Benny shook his head firmly. "There's no celebration without you, Sel. Everyone understands that." As they waited for the ambulance, Benny sat beside Selena on the couch, holding her hand and trying to provide comfort while fighting his own panic about seeing the woman he loved in such obvious distress. This was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of his life, and instead, he was watching Selena struggle with a condition that he was only beginning to understand. "I'm so sorry," Selena whispered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I ruined your perfect birthday." Benny immediately moved closer, carefully positioning himself so he could hold her without causing additional discomfort to her aching joints. "Listen to me," he said softly but firmly. "You didn't ruin anything. You being okay is the only birthday present I need." The EMTs arrived within minutes, and Benny watched with a mixture of relief and anxiety as they began assessing Selena's condition. Her blood pressure was elevated, her heart rate was rapid, and the butterfly rash was a clear indicator of lupus activity. They confirmed what Benny and Selena both already knew, that she needed to get to a hospital for proper evaluation and treatment. "Can I ride with her?" Benny asked the EMTs as they prepared to transport Selena. "Are you family?" one of them asked. "He's my boyfriend," Selena said weakly. "Please, I need him with me." As the ambulance pulled away from Benny's house, leaving behind the birthday decorations and the half-finished collaborative song, Benny held Selena's hand and realized that this night was teaching him something profound about love and priorities that he'd never fully understood before. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn that would define their relationship forever. During the ambulance ride, as the EMTs worked to stabilize Selena's vital signs and manage her pain, Benny found himself making a mental shift that surprised him with its clarity and certainty. Instead of feeling disappointed about the ruined party or anxious about the uncertainty ahead, he felt an overwhelming sense of purpose and determination. This was what love actually looked like, he realized. Not just the celebration and joy and easy moments, but showing up completely during the scared, painful, unpredictable times when everything felt uncertain. "Benny," Selena said weakly as the ambulance navigated through Los Angeles traffic, "I need you to know something. This might not be the last time this happens. Lupus is unpredictable, and flare-ups can happen anytime, even when I'm doing everything right." Benny squeezed her hand gently. "Are you trying to give me an out? Because if you are, you're going to be disappointed. I'm not going anywhere." The emergency room at Cedars-Sinai was bustling with typical weekend night activity, but Selena was quickly triaged due to her medical history and current symptoms. Benny stayed by her side through the initial examination, watching as doctors ordered blood tests, checked her vital signs, and asked detailed questions about her lupus management and current medications. Her inflammatory markers are significantly elevated, the attending physician, Dr. Sarah Kim, explained to both of them. "This is definitely a lupus flare, and it's a pretty significant one. We're going to need to adjust her medications and monitor her closely for the next several hours." As they settled into a hospital room for what would likely be an overnight stay, Selena finally allowed herself to fully acknowledge how scared she had been about experiencing a flare-up in front of Benny for the first time. "I was terrified this would happen," she admitted as they waited for the anti-inflammatory medications to take effect. "Not just the flare itself, but having you see me like this, vulnerable and sick and not the strong person you fell in love with." Benny looked at her with an expression of such tenderness and certainty that it took her breath away. Selena, do you want to know something? Tonight, watching you try to push through pain and exhaustion because you wanted my birthday to be perfect, seeing you worry more about ruining my party than about your own health, that showed me a strength I've never witnessed before. He paused, carefully taking her hand in a way that wouldn't aggravate her joint pain. I didn't fall in love with you because you're always strong. I fell in love with you because of how you handle being human. The way you manage challenges, the way you take care of the people you love, the way you keep creating and giving even when your own body is working against you. Selena felt tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in hours, they weren't tears of pain or frustration. They were tears of relief and overwhelming love for this man who had just proven that he understood her in ways she hadn't even understood herself. But your birthday, she said. The party, the song we were recording, all those plans. Sel, do you know what the best part tonight was? Benny asked, settling more comfortably in the hospital chair beside her bed. It wasn't the decorations or the food or even the music. It was watching you put so much love and thought into creating something special for me. And now, getting to be here with you, making sure you're okay. That's become the most meaningful birthday I've ever had. Over the next several hours, as Selena's symptoms gradually began to improve with treatment, they talked more openly about her lupus than they ever had before. Benny asked detailed questions about what flare-ups felt like, how she managed them, what warning signs to watch for, and what he could do to be more supportive during difficult times. Some people can't handle the uncertainty, she explained, not knowing when I might have a bad day, or when plans might need to change, or when I might need extra care and support. They say they understand, but when it actually happens, when life gets messy and unpredictable, they decide it's too much work. Then they weren't the right people, Benny said simply. Because loving someone means loving all of them, including the parts that require patience and understanding and sometimes changing your plans at the last minute. As dawn broke over Los Angeles, Selena was feeling significantly better, and the doctors cleared her for discharge with adjusted medications and instructions for rest. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Benny's phone buzzed with a text from Josh Goodwin. We finished the birthday song, the message read. Recorded it acoustically with just Halsey and Cashmere Cat after you left. It's beautiful, and it's yours whenever you're ready to hear it. Hope Sel is feeling better. Benny showed the message to Selena, who smiled for the first time since the symptoms had started. See, your birthday wasn't ruined. It was just different than we planned. 3 days later, when Selena was fully recovered from the flare-up, they listened to the completed birthday song together in Benny's home studio. It was gorgeous and intimate, with lyrics that had been improvised about friendship, creativity, and the unpredictable nature of life and love. You know what? Benny said as the song ended. This is better than anything we could have planned, because now whenever I hear this song, I remember the night I learned that loving someone means being grateful for every moment you get with them, healthy or sick, planned or spontaneous. And I'll remember the night I learned that real love doesn't run away when things get complicated, Selena replied, curling up against him on the studio couch. It just finds new ways to show up. But the story doesn't end there. In the weeks following Benny's birthday, something beautiful began to emerge from what had initially seemed like such a frightening and disruptive experience. Benny started accompanying Selena to her regular rheumatologist appointments, not as an intrusion, but as a supportive partner who wanted to understand her condition as thoroughly as possible. He researched lupus extensively, connecting with support groups for partners of people with autoimmune conditions and learning about nutrition, stress management, and lifestyle modifications that might help reduce the frequency and severity of flare-ups. More importantly, he began to recognize the subtle early warning signs that Selena sometimes missed when she was busy or focused on work. 6 months later, when Benny would propose to Selena in that same living room where his birthday party had been transformed into a medical emergency, he would tell her that his lupus flare-up birthday had been the night he knew with absolute certainty that he wanted to spend his life taking care of her, celebrating with her, and building a love strong enough to handle whatever challenges their future might bring. Because sometimes the most meaningful celebrations aren't the ones that go according to plan. They're the ones that teach you what really matters when everything else falls away. And for Benny Blanco and Selena Gomez, that lesson came wrapped in hospital bracelets and birthday cake, proving that the strongest love stories are built not on perfect moments, but on perfect commitment to each other through every imperfect moment life has to offer. What do you think about this incredible story of love, resilience, and finding strength in vulnerability? Have you ever had plans completely changed due to health challenges? Share your thoughts about how real love shows up during difficult moments. Because sometimes the most beautiful celebrations are the ones that teach us what we're truly celebrating in the first place. If this story reminded you that love means showing up for each other no matter what, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the moments that define what really matters in relationships.